Hello and welcome back to Hyperplay. After a myriad of missteps, GameHub finally sorted it out and released version 5.0.5, which enabled us to load Persona 3 Reload on our humble Retroid Pocket 5, and very exciting it was too. We were able to get the menus up and the intro movies playing beautifully after quite a lot of tweaking on our end, it must be said. We released a pretty popular video showcasing what we were able to do with version 5.0.5 and Persona 3 Reload. With some tinkering, we were able to watch all of the wonderful opening movies, and there are quite a few, but we did encounter crashes, and this is what we said at the end of our video. We did get Persona 3 Reload to load, and indeed reload when we tried it again, but we need to fix those crashes. And if anyone can, we can, so stick with Hyperplay. Subscribe to us and we'll keep you informed. Despite this initial impressive achievement, there were of course naysayers in the comments, but all comments are good comments. Where the actual gameplay, hear the actual gameplay. We have got Persona 3 Reload playable on the Retroid Pocket 5. But how far can we go this time before there's a crash? Well, stay tuned. And you'll want to watch the whole of the video because we do offer tips as always all the way through, and it is worth sticking around. Now, I'm going to talk fairly at my leisure as the game plays out, but this is the first steps at the station, and FPS is good. Very, very pleased, nudging up towards 30. It's not going to stay that high. Obviously, the game hasn't got a lot to render here, or many shaders to compile, so pretty closed off area, but very pleased with how it looks, and this is at 100% rendering resolution and 480p. That's pretty low in terms of the pixel density, but we think it looks pretty good. And we'll get onto this in a minute. There are also graphical plugin enhancements through the GameHub app side menu that you can access or indeed turn off completely. And they were quite revealing in terms of what they did. But we're having a little good old mooch around here. Yeah, still up at 30%, so let's leave the station. And I do need to keep talking in general, and I'm going to probably witter a little bit, because there's a lot of footage to get through, but also Atlas have been, let's say, rather tricksy with regard to us just letting previous elements of their titles, let's say, just play out without any voiceover. So I will keep yapping. You can always turn me down if you want, but yet tolerably pleased with the colours and the image performance here. And you know, I don't care if there's going to be dips in frames per second. People will say it's not stable. People will say it's unplayable if it might go down to 20 frames per second. I remember playing PSP games that ran, as most of them did, between 20 and 30 frames per second and never noticed and didn't really care. There's a big hang up these days on frames per second, but if we just take a step back, this is a PS4, maybe PS5, certainly Switch 2 game, just like Metaphor ReFantazio before was a PS4 game, and just like Final Fantasy VII Remake is obviously on the PS4, PS5, and now coming to Switch 2. So this is the Retroid Pocket 5, a console built to play GameCube and PS2 games that is able to play PS4 and Switch 2 games. And I think that's pretty phenomenal. So long and short of it is you can take your carpin about the FPS and stick it where... Anyway, let's have a look at this sidebar with the graphical enhancements. Quite interesting. Previously, putting on HDR would tank the frames per second, even to an extent that didn't make us happy. And the native rendering plus, putting that on would also sometimes cause performance dips. But now, you put them on, and yeah, there might be a dip in frames per second, but they bounce back. And actually, the game looks much better with HDR on. Obviously, it's particularly dark now at night time, but you'll see the colours pop soon. Native rendering plus, we think the game looks slightly better with it on as well. So yeah, we think enable those, unless you get into performance, well, not performance issues, but crashes later. So bear that in mind, that it might be worth toggling them off if the game is crashing, keeps crashing at a particular point. But be that as it may, we've got HDR on, it makes the colours truly more vibrant. We've got native rendering plus, which is hopefully smoothing over the performance nicely. And we've got a bit of sharpness on as well, and we'll come on to sharpness a bit more, because the sharpness 1 to 5 settings are very useful, and you can pull open the sidebar there and toggle your sharpness up to 5. But here we have to mess around with the keyboard and find a way to type in our usual name. If we need one name, it's Kinkle. If we need 2 names, it's Kinkle Horse, of course. And we go with that. And probably better show you soon that we are actually playing this on our Retroid Pocket 5. I don't want people thinking we've fired it up on an Odin 2 Portal or something else entirely stronger, like one of these newfangled 8 Elite handhelds, or a G3 Gen 3, no, or Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, no. This is on the Retroid Pocket 5, so in a bit you're going to see some footage of the Retroid Pocket 5 and it playing, and you'll see how much the colours pop, that it's not just on this recording. So where are we with frames per second? Yeah, it's down at 20, but found actually walking around the dorm to be a pretty smooth experience. Okay, so now we've got our man's new friend popping up. I have to say I haven't played Persona 3 Reload. I did play Persona 5 Royale. Loved the first half of it, found the second half interminably dull, and actually ended up going from loving the game to hating it in the end, because it was just so long and so very boring at the end. It should have finished on the arc, on the boat, but no spoilers there. So don't really feel like playing all the way through Persona 3 Reload, but I know a lot of you do, and I can understand that. I'm sure it is a very good game, nicely remade. And yes, these colours are popping beautifully. Hard for me to see exactly while I'm recording, but I can definitely tell that FPS is over 20. The RAM is interesting. The RAM is generally up in the mid-90s, and I don't think that that is causing any problems when the game does crash, but maybe a bit of extra RAM headroom if you've got a 12 gig handheld. Maybe that would help a little bit, but you know, we're within the boundaries here, and the CPU and GPU aren't being pushed too hard either. All very nice. Right, I think it is time to bust out the footage showing us on the Retroid Pocket 5. And before we do, can I remind you to please tap that like button? You do us a great service. We'd really appreciate it, and it'll help keep us going. Cheers! And look at those colours. It's something we've become used to on this amazing panel 5.5 inch OLED on the RP5. Truly the best in class, borderless. A lot of people say it looks like the images have been photoshopped onto the console, and it's such an immersive experience when you're playing. Highly recommend Retroid Pocket 5. We often have really good deals through AliExpress, and our affiliate membership with them in the description. So do check the description. I think they've got a fall sale on now, fall or autumn if you will. Yeah, it's a great sale on at the moment at AliExpress, and the link we have for the Retroid Pocket 5 is the link to the manufacturer's store. It's actually More Chip Technologies who make the Retroid Pocket 5 themselves, so you can buy with confidence. It's a great deal from a great seller. So you can buy with confidence from the link we give you in the description and get a great big discount. If you want a little hint, then sign up to AliExpress with a new email address, and you can make the Retroid Pocket 5 your first order. Follow the link for that in the description. You will find there's a nice link there to make the Retroid Pocket 5 your first order on AliExpress. So click our link to sign up with AliExpress, put in a new email address. Doesn't matter if there's a shipping address that's previously been used on AliExpress, and then come back, click our Retroid Pocket 5 link, and you'll get a hefty discount. And you should be able to get the RP5 for down at somewhere £165, £170, and it's worth every penny. Alright, we're about to go into our Kinkle Horse's dorm, and we're going to have another look, I think, at the in-game settings in the configuration menu. A blessed relief to save finally, especially if you're into this tinkering malarkey. To get to a save point when you can't save anywhere is truly useful when you're doing all this testing. Alright, here we go. We are into the system, and we'll have a look at the graphics configuration, and you will see what I said before, that we are at 480p. It's going to be 100% rendering resolution scale. Now you can put drop that down to 75%, it does start to look a little bit sludgy. If you do that, you'll certainly want to sharpen it up using the sidebar menu. We do recommend the borderless full screen setting. You can go to windowed mode, and it offers you the chance to drop the resolution even further to 450p. That actually doesn't make any difference whatsoever, because the lowest the game will run at is 480p. If you try and load up with a custom resolution of 450p, the game will just kick you back out immediately and say it can't do that low a resolution. So anyway, this will make it slightly easier to see. We are back into the menus. This is what I talked about just now. So I would suggest leaving that as is and turning on VSync if you get any screen tearing. We haven't had a single bit of screen tearing. The performance generally and the rendering is pretty good. It's quite difficult to know what exactly is causing the crashes when they do arrive. Just a question of tinkering and finding a way, and that's what we have done. We'll give you full settings in GameHub at the end. Now let's have a look in depth at this famous sidebar, and jury's out on just how useful these options have been within GameHub that you can pull open. Native Rendering Plus hasn't done a huge amount for us yet, but we live in hope that it will be the magic bullet. What we really want, of course, is AI upscaling. Super resolution definitely helps when you're playing these games at low pixel density. You do want to get your super resolution up, and we would recommend anywhere between 2 and 5. You toggle it and see how you go. But if you turn off super resolution at 480p, it's going to look pretty soupy, old P3R. And yeah, definitely recommend some super resolution at least. Also recommend HDR, which stands for high dynamic range. That's an excellent setting. That will be very nice as well. That's just a toggle you can turn on and off. So fiddle around with these, see how you go, but certainly we didn't see any loss in frames per second, no permanent loss in frames per second. They would drop occasionally by a couple, but now they bounce back. They didn't used to, but now they do bounce back. So yeah, super resolute as much as you like, and yeah, force enable your Native Rendering Plus and chuck on your HDR, and away you go until the game crashes, at which point you might want to turn them all off, because it might be that those options, those graphical enhancements, are causing crashes. We found no evidence to substantiate that yet. The game crashes at certain points regardless of whether those options are on or off. Okay, let's move this party along and get on to the next day in the game world. And one thing I did want to talk about briefly, an idea that we had to tweak the settings, was import an INI file. Now, anyone who's watched our video on high-end PC games on the Retroid Pocket 5 will know that we got Metaphor ReFantazio to run as well as we did by importing an INI file, and there was something called Metaphor Fix. And basically you could go into a document and really fine-tune the settings in terms of resolution and draw distance, ambient occlusion and how low you want that, and shadow density to get your FPS up, but also keep your graphics at an acceptable state and something that would work well on, for instance, the Retroid Pocket 5. So we wanted the fix, we wanted an INI file, but we were overjoyed to find that there was such a fix. The eagle-eyed amongst you will have seen it about 30 seconds ago. But what we need to do is get it into the same folder as the binaries for the game itself. Because this is a Steam game downloaded within GameHub, the only place you can access those binaries is in GameHub's mythical C drive, that in the container. So that is not something you can access through your My Files. And lots of people have been asking, no, you can't download the games within GameHub, or indeed the GameHub app, onto your SD card. You can't load it all up from there. It has to be off your internal storage, which is a real shame. And then we thought, well, we can do a workaround. We can use ALIEXPRESS because that has a different file manager. So we can go into the container, and within the container, we can actually move our INI file from our downloads folder on our Retroid Pocket 5 into the GameHub C drive and put it next to the P3RFix exe file in the binaries folder of the C drive. Except you can't do that within GameHub. It doesn't let you move files around inside the container. And so we thought, oh, okay, fine, we will use ALIEXPRESS because that did allow you to move files around. You can create a new start menu through installing ALIEXPRESS. It installs a new start menu. You can then move the ini file around. And we did that, but lo and behold, GameHub have locked down the container so much that, yes, I think you can still use ALIEXPRESS to load up your saves, but you can't use ALIEXPRESS to alter the start menu functionality. So annoyingly, until ALIEXPRESS gets an update, we'll just have to suffer no ini file and work with what we have got. And what we got there was a crash. Now it happens, maybe it's because we've been playing for a while, maybe our device heated up slightly, maybe there's just too much memory that bottlenecked after a long playthrough. So back to the lab again. We want to go and change a couple of settings, and this is what we did. And these are the settings that got the game running really well. Now, if you're having difficulty with in-game crashes or the game loading, this is what you need to do. Translation parameters, go and set safe flags at 2 and then strong memory at 3. Safe flags helps you boot up the game fully and maybe at a cost of some performance, but you want to get into the game before you start thinking about performance. So first things first, get your safe flags up if you're struggling to load, and then also if the game is crashing during gameplay, it's strong mem you want to get up, and that can go all the way up to 3. And if you find performance tanking, FPS dropping too low, then you can balance out strong mem 3 with weak barrier 1 or weak barrier 2. That will offset the loss of FPS. And these are the rest of our settings. Worth noting here, the command line, we found that -force-gfx-direct really helped, and of course the obligatory -dx11. Actually, I think that's a minus sign rather than a dash, if you will. But those are the settings you want, so we strongly recommend following those. So chucking this back on, and we'll zip through and see how far we can get now. So we're going through the loading process again. Can we get through? Yes, application launched. When you get the stripy blue lines there, it's always a good sign, as is that flashing or rectangle. And we are in, so we sped this up 8 times to get you through the menus and back to our save point. And this is why it's so important to get good saves on the game when you're tinkering and doing all this, because otherwise you have to go through all this faff. Now, could we get past this bit this time? Are we going to make it into the school? Do our new settings, safe flags, strong memory work? Bated breath. The FPS counter's still moving, always a good sign. Nothing has frozen. It's taking a long time to load up. We've got a window. Oh, we've got extra options at the bottom. Yes, we are into the school. Nice big environment, but the FPS will go down now, as you will see. Call me a heathen, you know, it's going down to 14 FPS. I don't care. It still seems to be running pretty smoothly to me. My eyes are not screaming in pain because of occasional dips in, well, occasional but frequent dips in FPS. I just think it's a miracle that Persona 3 Reload is running on a Retroid Pocket 5 natively. So yeah, absolutely lovely stuff here. Where we will encounter our biggest difficulty is Tartarus. That's going to be the biggest test. And we were deep into our entering Tartarus test when, not for the first time when doing these videos, they released a new version, 5.1 version of GameHub, as we were going to press. Now this one really does promise the world. They say the FEX parameters now work. DX11 support, very important for our humble Retroid Pocket 5 and other devices that don't support DX12. And let's face it, no one likes DX12 anyway. Increased stability, more emulator settings, higher FPS. But of course, GameHub version 5.1 ruined pretty much all of our settings, and we had to go back to the drawing board. Still, it's hard to be churlish when they worked wonders getting P3R going on the Retroid Pocket 5. We're very happy with it. But by Jingo, it's taken a lot of work, and fine tweaking. The parameters are, well, the combinations of parameters seemingly endless. If you appreciate what we've done, then please do like this video. It would help us a lot, and you can subscribe if you want to really support us, because every involvement gets this in front of more eyes. Gives us a bit more ad revenue, to be honest, and then we can spare the time to tweak and try again. This isn't a game that we're desperate to load up for ourselves. As I said, we're not huge Persona fans, but we want to do it for you, and also because we think it'll make quite a popular video, let's be honest. And these are the best settings to get Persona 3 Reload working on a Retroid Pocket 5 or probably a similar device. 480p, like we said, Force GFX Direct and DX11 there in the command lines. These are the translation parameters. Get your safe flags and your strong mem up, and also go for at least some weak barrier, we'd say. But you could try 0, 1 or 2 and see how you go. Feel free to tinker and let us know your results. If you can do better than we have, we would love to know. Now you see here disable graphic enhancement plugin. If you flick that to on, then you will not get the HDR and you won't get the super resolution. So we actually recommend just leaving that toggle as it is. These are our other settings. We actually found some good success with a new turnip driver, but none of this helped us get past the dark hour. This is where we last crashed out. Can we get past it? Of course we can. Trust in us. But stick with version 5.0.5 because version 5.1 is not ready yet. Classic GameHub to release a new version before it's fully ready, to promise you the world and then ruin all your games. But GameHub will get there, and so will we. Stick with us and please subscribe. Bye bye.